Welcome to Read Your Comics, and I'm in week 6 of the Age of Apocalypse. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Daryl. I'm the host of Read Your Comics. I am doing a 30th anniversary real-time read-through of the Age of Apocalypse. Each week, I'm looking at the books that would have come out 30 years ago on that new comic book day. And man, this week is a treat with the artists lined up in these two books. It's kind of odd. Last month, Weapon X, I think, was teamed up with the Excalibur book, but for some reason, when I looked up the dates, it was Generation Next this time. So I guess Generation Next would have been a couple weeks ahead, which I'm totally fine with. It's going to give me quite a bit to ooh and all over. But before I jump into either one of these books, I just want to give a quick shout out to all the viewer support. All your likes, comments, and shares are appreciated. And if you're new to the channel or just haven't done so already, please hit subscribe. I'll throw a graphic up right here. Do that now. Go ahead and like the video now too, so you don't forget. If you don't like the video, you can uncheck it. It's not a big deal. Let's move on. I'm going to look at Weapon X first this time. Both of these are great. I mean, it doesn't really matter because you're going to get good art in both of them. We got Adam Kubert, the regular Wolverine artist, and he's been doing this book. And I think the last issue, he actually had quite a bit of assistance, probably because he was coming off of the Wolverine 90 that had the big, multi-panel spreads and stuff. But it's pure Adam Kubert in this month. I love this cover too. You got a Wolverine on fire, jumping down on these like airships. The Weapon X trade dress is pretty awesome. I mean, it's just a great visual cover for a character we all know and love. So let's go ahead and jump into the issue. So Wolverine is he's not called Wolverine in this world. I'm gonna call him Wolverine a bunch of times. Just get used to it. He's in Great Britain. That's where this Eurasia Human High Council is, and him and Jean had just done some mission that allowed these Sentinels to go into North America and rescue some refugees, some human refugees that would be brought over to Europe. It just kind of left off there. The High Council was actually planning a strike on North America, a preemptive strike. Apocalypse is kind of aware of it. It's a running subplot we have in like a couple of the books actually, and this is kind of, you're getting as much of the human side of it as you're going to get right here. So Wolverine wakes up in the morning and Jean is missing, and he goes looking for her, and she's down on the beach here. We got our first sideways spread. She's down on the beach helping the refugees come in, and it's a great spread of the Sentinels returning. I do find something a little comical that, I mean, how many people can they load up on the shoulders and in the arms of these Sentinels to carry them literally across the ocean to safety? It seems like they should like open up and let the people like go inside them or something. I mean, that's got to be quite a windy trip on the way there. But the Sentinels look awesome from this perspective, like looking up. You've got like a weapons and mutant detector right here. As the refugees come through, they're just checking to make sure that they're not spies in their midst. Wolverine comes and is like, Jean, what are you doing down here? And she says she just wanted to help. And in the crowd, we do have some. And they make themselves very clear that it's Donald Pierce. We know him as a returning X-Men villain, very tied to Wolverine from the Hellfire Club days. Donald Pierce is the one that crucified Wolverine on that famous cover where he's nailed to the X. So we got to include him in this Age of Apocalypse and pit him against Wolverine. I should have mentioned this is Larry Hama doing the writing on this series, longtime Wolverine writer. So while it's not 100% clear what their history is in this universe, they do make it clear that Pierce knows who Weapon X is, and kind of loosely implied that they do have some sort of a history here. So essentially, Jean is saying that she just wanted to help, and here come the spies, and it turns out it's Vanessa that we saw in Amazing X-Men #2, which I should say on this one too. It points out that you should have read X-Men, or well, you should, for the full story, it's saying you should have read Amazing X-Men 1 and 2, which we've already done #1. #2 comes later this month. So in a way, it's kind of getting ahead, because where we left off in #1 is the evacuation was just starting and none of the Sentinels had flown back yet. So we know that they're obviously going to get some to escape. I guess let's take note of this one missing an arm right here, just in case when we get to that book, maybe we'll see that happen. I don't know. Anyhow, jumping back up here. So Vanessa, who was in Amazing X-Men, so I guess good tie-in with the Amazing X-Men title. And they're not with Pierce though. They're like separate. But they cause a ruckus. Fries this poor human kid who's out there helping. And of course, Jean and Logan are there to help, fortunately, because they're down on the beach. Pretty cool shot of Logan here. I mean, Adam Kubert does these claws. There's no way that this claw fits in this arm. Look at that. I love the way this says kill in the narration box. It's kind of chipped away at it. Another double page spread of Logan taking out that one character. I don't know who that character is. It said his name, but it's not super important. They pretty much dispense of these two that quickly in just a couple of panels. I mean, look at him there, stabbing him. I guess he smacks him with his stub hand there. And then here's stabs him and takes him out. And Jean takes out the Vanessa character with just a thought. Like literally just a thought. So the jumping around here is odd to me. So she's like, I still want to stay and help. He's like, you do what you want to do, Jean. And then we catch him. He's been Wolverine up at the Human High Council headquarters, I guess, or maybe they're in an airship. Unclear. I think the transition from what was happening down on the beach to this is odd. I find this tangent right here kind of odd too, because it's almost like he was trying to draw it as like kind of a chopped up single frame, but decided not to. I don't know. It's just weird how his arm's coming down. But Logan and Mariko have a little conversation here, and it's implied that they do have a history in this world, but she was a kid and blah, blah, blah. Really good, like, faces here. Good shadow on this one. And as they're having a talk, there's an explosion, and this is Pierce making his another double page spread. You see Pierce there saying, we're augmented humans, or altered humans. We're not mutants. But they're there to just take out this ship. And Wolverine jumps out of the one airship down onto the other. This is pure Larry Hama Wolverine stuff right here, where he's kind of narrating his fall, saying that the fire updraft will slow him down. He's getting fried. He's kind of worried, though, that maybe the fire might be too much for his healing factor, but he just jumps into the fray anyway. I like the general layout of this whole page. Big oblong on top, the little rounded one at the bottom, and how these panels kind of bend around that semicircle panel, and it zooms in a little bit on each one too. So good story flow, good cinematography, I guess you could say there. And we get our first look at Pierce full on, and he's pretty gruesome, but not really too different in the standard universe. He's on fire. His hair is all burned off, but he still has his tattoos. I mean, Pierce looks demonic. This issue moves really fast because there's a lot of action, and it kind of ends awkwardly here. I don't know if this is Pierce. He's saying something like, "I'm the lad who always kicked over the checkerboard when it looked like I was losing," and he's got something in his hand. Is this some kind of detonation device that blows up right here? It's kind of unclear to me exactly what happened. Like Wolverine throws one of the Reavers off. They don't call them the Reavers, but that's who they are. Throws one of them off, and there's an explosion there. He says it's your turn, Pierce, but then he makes that comment, and then there's an explosion. They mentioned too about Brian Braddock, being the lead investor of the Sentinels too, and that he has a vested interest, kind of getting this war going. And then it has another awkward transition here. I mean, Wolverine saying he hears goodbye in his head, and he's like, Jane. And then he runs off to find her, and she's getting in this like World War II fighter plane, I guess is what that is, of some sort. So she obviously knows how to fly a plane. He's hopped on a motorcycle. Wolverine on a motorcycle is always fun, right? And I like how his healing factor is growing his hair back a little bit more and more in each frame here. So she's saying that she's going back to North America, I guess, to warn as many people there that basically there's like a nuclear war about to happen. And she feels like she can't just sit over in Europe and not try to warn the good people there that it's coming. Um, Wolverine's saying that she can't do that. It's gonna, really disrupt everything. She offers herself to be killed, and of course, he doesn't do it. She flies down off the cliff, but is able to pull up, and she's heading out. I think his hair should have been more grown back. I mean, look at it there compared to this page here. Grown quite a bit out there, I feel like, as opposed to there. I'd like to know what these tattoos are. Though they don't really explain that. They didn't have them in the X-Men Chronicles issue, and it's like Nightcrawler kind of has one of those too, so they don't really ever explain that. Pretty fun issue, a lot of action. Although I think there was a couple of awkward transitions in the story, but what we get out of this whole issue is Eurasian Human High Council is wanting to launch an attack, a preemptive attack on Apocalypse, and Jean leaves Wolverine to go back to North America to tell them. I don't know if that little plane can make that transatlantic trip. Maybe it can. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's a comic book. All right, I said we got two great artists. First, we had Adam Kubert. Now we're getting Chris Bachalo on Generation Next. Last month, I pointed out how Generation X had only been going for 4 issues. So, I mean, we're jumping right into this alternate reality with these characters. I love this character here in the front. He reminds me of like a beefy hulked out Slash from Guns N' Roses. He just needs the top hat going right there. He's blasting Paige Guthrie or Husk in the face, and you see like her skin. She doesn't look like she's in pain, so must be turning into metal or something to block the bullet or whatever. I like the signature here, Crucky, for Chris Bachalo, and Mark Buckingham is the inker in this. So pretty cool art pairing there too. I like Mark Buckingham a lot. Great opening panel here with the circular frame, the kind of Victorian lettering, so to speak. I mean, kind of a nod to that. I like the ribbon for the credits. So very well composed page all around here. We see little Ilyana because she seems pretty small in this, like she is maybe about 10ish years old, whereas in New Mutants she had aged up into being a teenager, but she's definitely a lot younger in this. Nice opening establishing shot here of these. They call it the hole, I think, in this. It sounds kind of like it's one of those pins where it's never quite clear exactly what their what their job is here. It's almost like they just put humans in this pit to have them dig and do mining work for whatever reason, just to torture them. It sounds like. And Ilyana's got some new girl with her who's new to the area, and she's having her hide because the Sugar Man is coming. And we just see him in shadow in this, and he just seems kind of like a big round bulbous thing with stumpy legs, but he's just like grunting and making noises. And he gets something. You get kind of a better view of him here, sort of. I like the splatter texture on here too. That works really well. Probably kind of newer technique being employed because of the coloring process of this time. So he got something and is able to go off, and we see Ilyana, just happy that they weren't discovered and they're still alive. Now we start seeing some of our Generation Next team. Look at this bus. It's on like wagon wheels, though, and I like how it's like distorted to look almost cartoonish with all of this graffiti on it, and almost hearse-like as well too. So interesting design idea here too, especially for a motorized vehicle to have wagon wheels. And these two humans that I guess work in the pens, and like they're kind of having a little discussion that should they feel bad that they're humans, but they also work for Apocalypse and the Sugar Man tormenting humans. And they didn't see in the shadows of the car is another character who we're going to meet, which is Chamber, and he kills those dudes. So this is not a friendly group of young X-Men. I mean, he kills them, and you Skin up here, who is driving the van, the wagon, is like, I hope you at least save their uniforms for us. Look at this ad for robots. This guy looks like Apocalypse. Or Reboot. I never watched that cartoon. I was watching the X-Men cartoon and the Spider-Man cartoon and stuff like that, but I remember this cartoon coming on, but I was not watching it. And then we see the outside of the pit thing, and it looks almost like a nuclear plant. So maybe it does have something to, they're doing something to power things, maybe. I don't know, but man, look at this texture and stuff down here. Really dig that. The coloring works pretty well in this. 90s computer coloring. It has weird stuff like these gradients right here. Sometimes they hit highlights a little too much, trying to do too much, I guess is all you can say. But I think the coloring's working pretty good in this aspect. So now we're going to meet Colossus and Kitty Pryde, who are doing a little bit of recap on, what their mission is here, and it's to extract Ilyana. She has some chronal time displacement powers that Magneto needs, and they're doing it because of this guy Bishop, and they're kind of like, what kind of name is that anyway? When all of a sudden somebody gets the drop on Kitty. And if we saw her in the last issue, man, she was ruthless in the training session with the kids, but here's somebody gets the drop on her. Of course, Colossus isn't having that. And I love the way Bachalo does Colossus in this. He's so massive and bulky. Look at the way he draws hands. That's one thing about Bachalo. Him and Travis Charest, I think they have a way about the way they do hands and feet that are very distinct. So Colossus crushes this dude. It looks like he either smashes one rock down on him or takes two rocks and smashes them together. Kitty first stabs him, though. They're snaked. It's just showing how ruthless they are. Good use of silhouette. I like this reverse silhouette, too, with the gradient in it. That's what I'm saying. The coloring works pretty well here. Now we get to meet another new character named, I think you pronounce it Quietus. Quietus. Quietus? Anyway, and he's taking like a spa or bubble bath or something, and you see this character in here who's like the servant towel girl, and this is Paige. So this part's a little creepy because she's a teenager. She's a teenager doing this, but look at the detail, not just the suds, but like on her hip right here, she's got this little bottle on her, like tied onto a belt. Quietus is a little suspicious that she's new. He hadn't seen her before. I wonder who that is. That's an interesting choice to have that drawing back there. Anyway, he's a little suspicious of her, and it's a little RA here. I mean, at least they put like a coat on her for this scene. But he does look pretty awesome. He says there's some kind of gas that makes mutants nauseous, which it obviously makes her nauseous. He realizes she's some kind of spy, but thinks that she's, kind of beneath him. I mean, just like smacks her, wants some information out of her. Notice here we have the bottle again. So that's something to take note of. The detail in all of this, everything in this page, man, he just does a great job in all the little fine details. His hair, the blood spatter. I mean, he must have hit her pretty hard to hit the wall over there. That looks like Elvis. Anyway, so he sees the bottle, and she's like, "No, that was my mother's. Please don't do it." He's like, "Your mother smelt of elderberry," and he drinks it. But you see that grin, like, So he's threatening her, wanting to know who she is. He says, "You're too young to be an X-Man. Maybe you're one of Mikhail's people, trying to make Holocaust look bad." And that kind of gives you the impression that even Apocalypse's henchmen are kind of against each other. It's like they work together, but they're against each other. They're always positioning for power, which is also what Apocalypse wants, because it's survival of the fittest. You get this gurgle, 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 and out comes Vicente, who was in a liquid form in the bottle, and then he reconstitutes himself inside Quintus. And I mean, I don't know if this is supposed to be purple blood, or if they were like, that's a lot of blood, we're going to have to change it to purple because it's way too much. Either way, man, that's a gruesome scene. And if we look here, like, look, bottom of the jaw with teeth, there's an eyeball, a hand there, his nose. I don't know if this is supposed to be intestines. There's like a big femur bone sticking up. I mean, that's a gruesome scene. And of course, he's making some jokes about like how gross it was, and that if he'd known that was going to happen. And she was like, "You're the one that wanted to travel in the liquid form," because they're trying to infiltrate this like nuclear facility, this energy generating place, right? We meet Mondo, who's also there, and he's like hiding in the brickwork and stuff. Mondo makes a bigger impact as we go along. He's kind of in the shadows, sneaking around because he can just blend into the walls and to the atmosphere. But now we see this guy walking again, and until we read this, we find out that it's Husk and Vicente are using that guy's like skin, his husk, to impersonate him. And they go over to this area where there's these other guards, two of which are Chamber and Skin. They're the ones that stole the uniforms from the guy earlier. And then we see Illyana once again in the pens. And as it wraps up, it says, "If you can believe it, this was the upbeat, positive chapter. Things get worse." And that's it for week 5. 2 really good books. These are 2 of the strongest books, I think. Mostly for the art on this one. There's story aspects I like, but there's some disjointedness and in the pacing, I guess. And you could call out that Amazing X-Men 2 should have been maybe read before this, but at the same time, it's like, how strict do you want to be in dictating the pacing across the whole thing? Like, should this book have its own pacing that maybe the story needs to pick up after that, but its second issue is coming out? So do you put a filler issue in to catch up, or do you just go ahead and say, here's what's happened. If you want the full story of this, go read the other book that's going to come out later this month. I think it's fine, really, in the grand scheme of things, because some people didn't pick up every book. You could also kind of complain that if you're trying to read it as like one whole story straight through, there's a little bit of disjointedness there. This one, killer art by Bacalo. He's putting all of his talents into this, and I think it's coming out spectacular. I think what they're trying to do, this team, and their mission is interesting in itself of rescuing Illyana. So I'll see you next week for the next installment of the Age of Apocalypse. Until then, read your comics. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my breakdown of this issue, you can support the channel by hitting subscribe. It costs you nothing and helps other comic fans find the channel. You can also visit readyourcomics.com for cool merch, like this. Read Your Comics isn't just a brand, it's a mantra. And when you wear a Read Your Comics shirt, you are helping spread the word. For more classic comics conversation, be sure to follow me on Instagram at read.your.comics. And if you're still here, why not watch one of my older videos? Here or here.